Hi, it's Bruce, blowing the snow for fun, and I thought I would do a quick review of my impressions and a little walkthrough of the 2019 Ariens Platinum SHO 24-inch that I have, carbureted. So let me get the camera, I'm going to move you a little bit closer. First of all, let's talk about the controls on this machine a little bit. I'll turn it just a little so you can see it. Very intuitive, very easy to use. The auto turn, which is the basically the system that Ariens uses for keeping the axle with a differential so it doesn't lock. It makes it easier to turn and handle. Makes it easier for me to turn like I just did right there. The machine has all the controls where you can handle them right here at your fingertips. The hand warmers are right here, on and off. The only problem I have with the hand warmers is when I'm into a deep snow and I'm pushing it with my body a little bit to get it started, occasionally I will hit the switch with my jacket. But I have the same problem when I use a machine that has the EFI. I bump that control knob on it and change the engine speed as well. So I don't know, maybe I got a big gut, maybe I wear a thick jacket. I don't know what my problem is, but I just seem to hit those buttons where they're located, but they are in a good place here. The chute control to swing the chute either way is located right here. You pull back and you swing to the left to turn it to the left. You swing it to the right to turn to the right. It does turn back of center, so if you're trying to throw the snow slightly behind you in a certain situation for whatever reason, like you're next to a building or next to a car, you can do that pretty effectively. The chute is only articulated in one spot. Here is the control that takes care of the height of the chute, and you can easily move that up and back. I did have to tighten the spring on that slightly. There's a spring underneath the dash here because it would occasionally, if I was throwing really wet, heavy snow, it would pop out of the first notch, catch on the second notch. But now that I tightened that spring up and lubricated it with a little bit of tri-flow, I no longer have that problem. The engine drive is on this side over here, and simply press down to get the machine to go in forward or reverse. The gear selector is right here. There is a 1 and a 2 for reverse, and it is kind of slow. I wish there was actually a little quicker reverse on this. My older machines, I have a Simplicity 8-horse that is probably a 1990-ish machine, and I have a Toro model 824. They're both 8 horses. The Toro is probably early 80s, and they both have a little faster reverse on them, and I kind of like to be able to back up a little bit quicker than this does. It's adequate, but it would be nice to have something a little higher. And then first gear, of course, is right here. Second gear all the way up to 6th. That's kind of odd on an Ariens machine. 6th gear is almost too fast to walk. Even if you're in transport and you don't have the auger engaged and you're going down the street with it to go to another job or to help one of your neighbors out or something like that, 6th gear is almost so fast that you can't even keep up with it. It would be nice if they had an extra low gear. I noticed there was even a guy who created a low gear by notching out another notch on the control panel here. And he's got kind of a creeper gear on there, which would be nice. That would be actually handier than the 6th gear. But there's a nice spread of gears. It's easy to find a comfortable pace. Usually when I'm blowing snow, I'm in 2, 3, or 4 if it's real light or I'm trying to go, relatively quickly because someone's got to leave for work. And it's very easy to place the machine into gear and to get the machine to go. So again, put it in the drive, and then you press down on this handle. It's kind of nice because once you close your hand, there's no hand fatigue because the weight of your hand is holding it down. The auger is located on the other side. To engage the auger, you simply press down. And kind of a nice feature with the Ariens, a lot of the other machines too, my older Simplicity has this as well. If you press down on this, it locks the other handle. So if I want to change while I'm going forward or reverse, if I want to change the chute angle or the chute direction, I have my left free hand to do it, okay? And then let go of this hand, it disengages both the auger and the drive. Very nice setup. A lot of machines that I've had in the past have a tight cable with these when they're at idle and not being used and It's kind of a PIA because you're constantly having to adjust it as that cable stretches. On the Ariens, they have a spring on it that gives you exactly the right tension all the time. Very nice, very easy to use. This snowblower, compared to the snowblowers that I've had in the past that have a fixed axle, this machine is so easy to handle and use. You just point it wherever you want to go and it will go there, and then it locks both of the wheels. But it's absolutely wonderful to move it around in the garage. You don't have to horse it. My wife can use it very easily. I can use it very easily. I'm in my 60s now. I'm getting older. You know, this is a fairly big machine. If this was a machine with a fixed axle, it would be quite a wrestling match to turn it at the end of the driveway if there wasn't a slippery surface. But with the auto turn, it's absolutely fantastic. I've read reviews early on about the auto turn where people had problems with it, but the balance of the machine has been changed, and the system, the axle position has been changed slightly since then, apparently, because I have absolutely no issues with that whatsoever. The light is located up here in the dash, and by the way, this is an all metal dash. I love that on my Simplicity and my Toro, my old ones. Because sometimes, let's face it, when you're bucking really heavy end of the driveway, plowed pile, and there's ice in it and everything else, you're trying to get that first path through, you put your body into those handlebars and you push. And so many of the new machines now are plastic up in here. And at 0, at 10 below 0, at 20 below 0, like we get here in Wisconsin, that really worries me. That's why I really, really like this all metal dash up here. And it gives you fantastic stability and a feeling of very, very sound strength whenever you go to turn this machine, whether you're in deep snow or you're in shallow snow. The primer button for starting is right here. The on and off key is located right here. And it's simple to turn on and off. You can reach it from the operator's position very easily. The prime, I usually have to prime it 3 times for a cold engine, and the fuel shutoff is located right here. And the fuel shutoff is very nice, especially at the end of the season or if you're not going to use the machine for a while, because you can shut it off. You can run the carburetor dry without having to empty out the fuel tank, because you might have another snow later in the year. I always use Stable in my gas. I do what Paul Sigma does. I put a tablespoon of Stable and I put a tablespoon of Seafoam in all my gas when I buy it. And then as I use it, that keeps the passages in my carburetor clean and it keeps my gas fresh. I never put alcohol fuel, ethanol fuel in my snowblower or any of my small engines. I have a place up in northern Wisconsin. They still sell 91 octane with no ethanol up there, and I bring my gas for my small engines back with me. I don't mess around with putting any of that other stuff in there, because with my older machines, I use that stuff, and I had nothing but problems with situations where the carburetors, the bowls would get that crap in them from the alcohol pulling moisture into that bowl, especially in the off season. So this, you can shut the fuel off and you can run the machine out. There's a little set screw on the bowl on the carburetor on the Ariens that you can remove, and it drains anything that you have left in the carburetor out, and you can close that up and retorque it a little bit, and you're all set to go. The choke is very simple to use. There's a throttle and a choke. It's in one control. There's an arrow, and the red is the choke that says start. You move it to the start position to get it going. Once it starts, you gradually back it off until you have it in the run position. The idle is this gray control down towards the bottom here, and the gray control controls the speed of the engine. Right now it's on fast. Now I turn it down to idle, and you can go anywhere in between there, which is very nice. It's nice to be able to idle the machine down, especially when you're swooping it off after you're done blowing snow and you're kind of knocking, you know, some snow in places where you'd like it to be able to melt, and the machine stays warm and idles a little bit while you're working on it. So as far as from an operator's perspective, I really like the Platinum models because of the control up in here. Now some of the new machines have an electronic actuator that controls the chute. Boy, for me, that's one of the reasons why I didn't go with the EFI. I'm an old school guy, and I like my stuff that if something goes wrong with it, I can fix it. I can get a part and I can put it in, I can look at it, I can repair it, because the worst thing in the world, in my opinion, is a big storm coming and all of a sudden you got something that is run on your snowblower and it's not working, or it's not working right, and now you got to take it into a dealer who are swamped at that time and they can't get to you for 3 weeks. What do? Well, in my case, I fix it myself, but if it's something that's real complicated or real expensive to do, then I would definitely prefer to have something mechanical. And I've had absolutely zero issues with the chute either freezing up or moving from the position I put it in. There's also on the side of the chute here, there are 2 spare shear bolts, and there's also reflective tape that helps when you're working and turning around out in the end of the driveway. Let's give you just another quick rundown on that, just from a different perspective so you can see how the machine operates. Again, the auto turn, ease of use, the chute control as far as going from left to right. The extra shear bolts are located right here. The reflective tape, which is well thought out, is on that side. On both sides, there's also a strip of it on each side of the platinums on the sides of the bucket. So if you're going out into the street, your hand warmer is here. Your chute height control is here. You can actually operate these both at the same time if you were to have 2 hands free. And your gear selector is on this side. Headlight is over here. The auger engagement is over here. The drive engagement is over here. Again, it has one-hand operation. If you release it, then you can, the machine shuts everything off at the same time. To check the oil on this machine, it's very simple. There's simply a dipstick that's located on the top. It's an easy twist. The fuel fill-off, which is a little bit on the difficult side, I have to say, to remove sometimes. There is a red bar in there, and that shows you what the height of the fuel should be in the tank. You know, some guys complain about the size of the tank on these machines, and to be honest with you, I prefer the tank a little bit smaller. I do my own, and I do several neighbors, and I also do my backyard, so my dogs have a runway, and I'm out with the snowblower sometimes for 2 hours at 14, 15, 16 inches of snow. You can see in some of my videos, I've never run the snowblower out of fuel. But the nice thing about the little bit smaller tank is you always start with fresh gas. You get the big tank, you know, and it's full up, and you can go sometimes the whole season if you don't get a lot of snow. And you know, some of the guys complain too that the fuel cap is a little tough to get on and off. And I took a little bit of silicone lube and I put it, it's a grease called Super Lube, on the inside of the gasket, and it makes it a lot easier to handle and take on and off. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult. The electric start is here on this side of the machine. You plug the extension cord, any extension cord in there. You set your controls, you turn your fuel on, you choke your machine, press the button. When it starts, you release it, and then you go to working with your choke and backing your choke off. There is a tool located on the front of the machine for clearing snow. If you were to get it in your chute, never ever stick your hands in a machine that's running. If you have a clog, always shut the machine down, don't leave it idle, shut it off. Shut it off so that you don't have an issue, because if you get something caught in there and a jacket or whatever catches on on something, or somebody else comes up, small child or something like that, and grabs the control, you don't want your fingers getting ground up. I do have drift cutters on this machine. I installed them. I wish Ariens would have a little different style knob on the drift cutters. The drift cutters work well when they're up. And right now I'll rotate it so that's in the up position. But the knobs, the controls on the knobs are small. And when you have gloves on, it's really difficult in cold weather because there's a nylon insert on them. That nylon insert gets stiff, it's difficult to move. Now, if you have them up and they're in the garage like this, let me tell you what, these are getting hung up on everything. Every time you walk past the machine, you get hung up on it. Every time you carry a bag of groceries in, it gets and ripped open. So you almost got to put them up, and it increases the length of your machine by 10 inches. I don't have room for that in the garage. I wish I could leave them up all the time, but I can't. I think a much better design would be an elongated knob. That would be easier to grab and hang on to and twist. But you can see that they're fairly easy to change from down to up. And I also have installed the poly skid shoes on this machine. I started off
with the metal ones, and I didn't have any problems with them. With the auto turn or anything else, everything worked great. But I have a big wooden deck in the backyard, and I like clearing that deck off. I do my grilling there in the winter and things like that. And to go on there with metal was just to scratch it all up, and I didn't want to do that. So I installed the poly skid shoes on there, and I like them. I would say you actually have a little better control of the machine when you're going on concrete, especially if it's really rough concrete. Like I have a couple of neighbors I help out, and they have some chirp popping going on in their driveway in a couple of spots, and the metal shoes would tend to get a little bit hooked on that. Once in a while, the poly shoes just tend to slide right over that. This is the only snowblower that I have ever owned that I have never had to spray the chute with PAM or any type of Teflon or silicone to keep it from clogging. It just has so much power that it literally, I haven't been able to plug it. Literally, I have not been able to have tried to do it. And the other nice thing about the Ariens is where you have your belt that drives the auger assembly, there are two belts on an Ariens. On my older Toro, my older Simplicity, that belt would slip sometimes, especially when you'd engage it, and it wouldn't really grab right away. With two belts, it grabs instantly, and you get a tremendous amount of torque and thrust out of that. When you're throwing wet, heavy snow, it's better to start quick than it is to have that belt start slow, and then, if it starts fast, right away, it comes flying out of that chute, and you don't have any problems. But overall, the machine is very, very well designed. It's easy to work on, and by easy to work on, I mean changing the oil on this thing is a breeze. You take a little vice grip, and you can see the oil port down below here. You take a vice grip, there's a flat section on it. You lock a small vice grip on that. You stick either a crescent wrench or a socket on the end of that. You loosen it up, you put your oil drip pan underneath there, and you simply tip it back, wear a pair of rubber gloves, and take that cap off, and it drains out of there so nicely. My older machines, all the time, I'd take a wheel off them, I'd prop them up to try to get it so it would drip out of there. The Ariens has really got a nice situation as far as draining the oil out of there. The other thing I really like about this machine is I love the service position. If I want to check, air pressure in my tires, if I've got something to do with the belly pan, if I want to inspect something, it's real easy to tip it into that upright service position. And it's a fairly heavy machine, so you got to be careful when you do it. And I always like to put like a piece of cardboard or a piece of plywood or something like that down before I tip the machine. But again, here it is, we're in this position. Here's your primer bulb. And if I get down right here, I can see right here on the carburetor is that nut. There are two nuts on the carburetor. One that controls, there are two nuts on the carburetor. One that holds the bowl in place, that's the center one. And then this is the little tube that goes to the primer. And then this other nut right here, this one on the outside that points away from the carburetor, that's the one that you take off. I think it's a 10 millimeter, but I'm not positive, to drain any fuel out of there. You can take a little plastic yogurt cup or something like that and hold it under there, or even a paper towel would do. On my old machine, older machines, they had a system where there was a big pin that went through the axle. On the Ariens, they have a clip. It's fairly easy to use, and then there's a key on the inside. I live in a fairly good neighborhood, but still, these are expensive machines, and you need to take care of them. And in the off season, I take the pressure off of my machine by putting a 4x4 with a 2x4 on top of it underneath the belly pan. I lift the machine up, I kick that under there with my foot. I put wood, a couple of pieces of cedar underneath the front of my machine so that none of the metal is touching the ground. And then I take the wheels off of my machine and I put them in the basement. If somebody wants to steal it when I'm not here, and over the summer, then they're gonna have to carry it.
And I think that's a great way of a friend who lived in not such a good neighborhood taught me that one time. And I thought, what a wonderful idea to keep your snowblower around. But so if you're looking for something that will help with that, again, not guaranteed, but it just will discourage theft if you don't have those wheels on. One word of caution. There is a small key that fits in the slot on the axle. When you take your tires off, if you're going to do that, and you should do this as part of your routine maintenance every year anyway, clean the axle itself off, re-grease the axle with a low temp grease or a synthetic grease. I use Mobile One grease on that, or Super Lube. And then there's a slot. Take a Q-tip, clean the slot out, and grease the slot as well. And there's a small metal key that is like a slot, like about an inch long and a quarter of an inch in width. And that is what makes the tire grab the axle, or the axle grab the tire to turn it. You don't want to lose that. I always put those in a Ziploc bag, and I take a twist tie and attach them to one of the tires. So in the spring or in the fall, when I go to put my tires back on, I have that right there. And I do the same thing with the clips. I put the clips in there in that plastic bag as well. But if you clean those and keep them well lubricated, then eventually when you have a flat tire, or your tire is having problems holding air at some point in your snowblower's life, which may be 10 or 15 years down the line, then it's easy to get off because you have it lubed up, and you can simply take that tire off, and you can take it to a dealer if you need help putting a tube in it, or you can work on it yourself. But if you keep those axles lubed, that goes a long way to making that rim come off of there. Otherwise, I've seen guys with videos with jacks, bottle jacks, gear pullers, beating on them with different types of mallets and things like that. And it can't be good for your drive system. So do yourself a favor and try to keep those well lubricated. And anytime you're going to use any type of lubricant on here, I use 5W30 in the engine, which is what's specified by Ariens. And then anywhere else, I use synthetic lube, I use Super Lube, or I use Mobile One, because they're low temperature greases, and I don't have to worry about them when it gets real cold out not doing their job. Okay? So again, I've had this machine now. I bought it in 2019. I have two friends that are that were looking for snowblowers at the same time. We went in and we worked with a local dealer to get a little better price on them, because we were buying 3 of them at one time. And all 3 of them have been spot on, outstanding, fabulous machines. They have over-the-top power. There is nothing that I can see that, especially here in Wisconsin, and we've gotten snowfalls here in Wisconsin, 24, 26 inches of, heavy packed drifting snow. I know out west and, in the Great Lakes, we're right off of Lake Michigan, we get a lot of snow from that too. You guys get a lot of snow too, but this is a snowblower that can virtually handle any amount of snow. And what I always like to tell people is, fear no blizzard if you got an Ariens in the garage, and it's true. So that's my just my kind of little bit of a review of the features of the Ariens SHO. I did order a new headlight for this. I ordered the LED, and I will have a video of that when I get it. I'll do an unboxing, and I'll also have a video of the installation. And I'm hoping it's a little bit brighter. The only disadvantage with this light right here is in certain situations where you lean forward a little bit behind the handlebars, and there is a little bit of frosting on this lens, it does kind of get up if you wear glasses in particular and give you a little bit of glare on your glasses, especially at night. Wonderful machines, well designed, lots of metal, heavy metal. You get in here, and on the front here, this is rolled steel. You take some machines and you push on them here and you can feel motion, and there is absolutely no motion at all. Nice solid scraper bar down below that you can replace if you ever need to. Gearbox is guaranteed for life. I've never broke a shear pin on this yet, and I've hit some fairly sizable pieces of icicles and things like that have dropped off of cars in the driveway and never had a problem. And again, this is the only chute that I have ever had that I have not been able to plug. So if you're thinking of getting an Ariens Platinum SHO,
This is the 24-inch, and I would highly recommend it. Plenty of power, plenty of features, and for a machine that has this kind of engine size and this kind of features, this kind of strength and power, it is amazingly easy to handle. You will not be disappointed if you get this machine. If you have any questions, you can send them to me down below. Thanks. This is Bruce with Blowing Snow for Fun. Have a great day.